When we talk about summer, pleasant images immediately come to mind: warm evenings, the smell of a campfire, the rustle of leaves, a light breeze, and of course, the long-awaited vacation. All this sounds wonderful, until the main villain of the warm season appears on stage. Small, buzzing, merciless. No, this is not a horror movie character. This is the mosquito. At first glance, it's just a tiny insect. But as soon as it appears, the whole idyllic mood is torn to pieces along with your sleep, your peace of mind, and, strangely enough, your blood. Mosquitoes are real summer pirates, destroying comfort in any situation, be it a romantic picnic, a trip into nature, or even just an ordinary evening on the balcony. It seems they don't care where you are or what you're doing, they will find you. But who are they really? Why do their bites itch so much, and why do they even need our blood? And most importantly, where did they come from, if, it would seem, no self-respecting evolution would have created something so irritating? It's time to figure out how these tiny vampires became the full-fledged masters of summer and why, despite all our dislike, they still occupy an important place in the natural system. Ready to look at mosquitoes from an unexpected side? And most importantly, why do they have to bite? Why does the skin itch after these bites as if a troop of nettles had landed on you? We are used to thinking that nature, though strange, is still wise. After all, it produced platypuses, egg-laying mammals with a duck's bill, and jellyfish, which, according to some data, have no expiration date at all. They are capable of living forever. Nature is full of wonders and oddities, but can mosquitoes really be called a wonder? And yet, whether we like it or not, mosquitoes are also part of this big and mysterious world. Moreover, they are among its most ancient inhabitants. Scientists believe that these winged bloodsuckers have been flying across the planet for 50 to 100 million years already. That means they witnessed the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. Just imagine, a huge Tyrannosaurus, the majestic ruler of the Mesozoic, unsuccessfully trying to swat away a pesky mosquito. Maybe even with its tail. Sounds almost comical. Today mosquitoes are true masters of survival. They have spread practically all over the globe, except, perhaps, Antarctica, where, fortunately, it is too cold for them. These creatures inhabit equally well the tropical jungles of Central Africa and the harsh expanses of Siberia. One fact: the probability that the first human on the planet experienced a mosquito bite is close to 100%. Yes, mosquitoes are our collective summer curse. But they are also a living reminder of how unusual and unpredictable evolution can be. Before diving deeper into the topic, it's worth clarifying one important point: not all mosquitoes crave blood. Moreover, the difference here is not in the species but in gender. Only females feed on blood, while males are content with a much more peaceful and harmless source of energy, the nectar of plants. Simply put, if we were to draw a parallel with humans, it would look like this: all men on Earth would by default be strict vegetarians, while women would sometimes include meat dishes in their menu. Such a difference in diet within the same species is an extremely rare phenomenon in the animal world. Fortunately, distinguishing a female from a male is not that difficult. Males are noticeably smaller and have a characteristic hairstyle. Their antennae are covered with fluffy hairs. So if a mosquito with such unusual antennae lands on your hand, don't rush to turn him into a stain on the wall. This gentleman won't harm you and definitely won't bite. Females, however, are different. Their antennae are smooth and not designed for hunting nectar. They are adapted to another task: searching for a source of blood. Interestingly, female wings beat from 300 to 500 times per second. It is precisely because of this that the very same annoying buzz, familiar to everyone, appears, the one that can drive even the most patient person to despair. Male fluffy antennae, on the other hand, are designed to catch this high-frequency vibration and find their potential mate. The mosquito's life cycle is rather short, although for a female it can last 1 to 2 months, while males rarely live longer than 2 weeks. And although that seems like a little, every day of their existence is filled with concerns. Especially for females, on their shoulders lies the responsible mission of continuing the species. To produce offspring, they need to find a source of blood, because without it the eggs simply cannot develop. When the eggs are ready, a new stage begins, the search for a suitable body of water. The best place for laying is standing water, a puddle, a ditch, a swamp, or even a forgotten bucket of rainwater. But time is short for the mosquito, so females usually hunt within a radius of only 2 to 3 kilometers from the intended breeding site. For this very reason, building a house near old ponds or swampy areas is not the best idea. Swarms of mosquitoes will feel right at home there. You might think, but what about lamps or repellents at the entrance? But unfortunately, that won't save you. There's a myth that mosquitoes are attracted to light. In fact, they couldn't care less about the brightness of the lantern by the door. What interests them much more are the smells and chemical signals that you emit. Moreover, not all species of these insects are focused specifically on humans. Actually, only a relatively small portion prefers human blood. Most mosquitoes hunt animals, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians. Humans just got lucky to end up among their occasional victims. And it's no wonder, animals, unlike us, don't wave their hands or arm themselves with a newspaper, so getting food from them is easier. But if not light, then what leads them to us? It's quite simple. Mosquitoes have several sensors for detecting prey. First of all, they react to carbon dioxide, that same CO2 you exhale every second. Even a tiny concentration of it in the air can be detected by the insect at a distance of more than 25 meters. Try holding your breath. Unfortunately, it won't help. At close range, mosquitoes begin to orient by heat and movement. Nature has equipped them with excellent tools for this task. First, mosquitoes have complex compound eyes made up of hundreds of microscopic lenses, allowing them to cover a wide field of vision. Second, their body is covered with tiny sensitive hairs. They pick up the slightest vibrations of the air, for example, when you walk through the garden or mow the lawn. For a mosquito this is like a signal, there is something big and warm here, time to check it out. And so, when the huntress finds her prey, the most mysterious part of her existence begins, the feeding process. What we feel as a quick prick is actually a complex and sophisticated action involving special mouthparts, saliva, and clever mechanisms created by nature so that the victim doesn't immediately realize that its blood is already being used for the sake of the next generation. When a mosquito finds a suitable victim, it acts extremely cautiously. Its characteristic buzzing gives it away, impossible not to notice, but the insect itself is powerless to do anything about it. The sound is created by its own wings, working at incredible speed. The female's task is complicated by the fact that for a full meal she needs about 3 minutes. And all this time she balances on the edge of life and death. As soon as a person notices the bite, the insect risks turning into a wet stain. So those who claim that waving your hands and shooing mosquitoes is useless may reconsider. Every one of your attempts to hit really does matter. This idea is confirmed by scientific data. In 2018, Dr. Jeff Riffel and his colleagues showed that mosquitoes have the ability to remember the smell of those creatures that actively resisted their bites. Moreover, they avoid such victims for a whole day. In other words, if you brushed away or tried to swat an annoying bloodsucker, next time it will most likely choose a calmer neighbor. For the insect this is a logical and, one could say, wise decision. Why risk it, if you can peacefully dine somewhere else? Even if a mosquito manages to land on a person unnoticed, it cannot immediately begin its meal. Its mouthpart, the proboscis, is far more complex than just a tube for sucking blood. In fact, it is a clever construction of 6 tiny stylets hidden inside the outer lip. And yes, at the moment of the bite, not one needle pierces the skin, but 6 at once. Some of them have tiny teeth, literally allowing them to cut through the skin. Funny enough, the structure of the mosquito's proboscis actually became the prototype for the development of less painful medical needles. Doctors decided that if nature had already invented a convenient and effective tool, why not borrow the idea? Each element of this miniature mechanism performs its own function. Some stylets search for capillaries under the skin, others are responsible for injecting saliva. And it is the saliva that plays the key role. Since blood feeding takes several minutes, the mosquito must do everything to ensure that its victim doesn't notice the puncture. The saliva contains more than 100 different substances, including enzymes that prevent blood clotting and ensure its free flow. Other components act as a local anesthetic, blocking pain sensations. As a result, a person almost doesn't feel the very moment of the bite, only a light touch, which often goes unnoticed. The real trouble begins later, when the insect has already flown away. The immune system reacts to foreign proteins from the mosquito's saliva, and at the puncture site itching, redness, and swelling appear. The reason why the skin starts to itch and swell after a bite lies in the specifics of our immune system. Mosquito saliva contains dozens of proteins and enzymes, and most people react to them the same way they do to an allergen. The body perceives these substances as a threat and launches a defense mechanism. Histamines are released, which cause itching, redness, and unpleasant sensations. But to say that this happens to everyone would be wrong. There are lucky ones who practically don't feel the bites, their immune system remains indifferent to mosquito saliva. Now that's good luck. But still, the main question remains open: why do females even need blood, if males do just fine with nectar? The answer is simple: for them blood is not food in the usual sense, but building material. To develop and lay viable eggs, the female needs a huge amount of protein and iron, which simply are not found in the sweet sap of plants. That is why she takes the risk and hunts warm-blooded creatures. After a hearty meal, the mosquito needs a day or even two to fully digest the received food. Only then does the female go in search of a suitable place to lay eggs, and the whole cycle repeats again. This process is so important for the species that nature has supplied the female with many clever mechanisms, making her almost an ideal huntress. Fortunately, humans are far from always her favorite target. Many species of mosquitoes much more often choose other animals, birds, amphibians, mammals. But even despite this, we inevitably end up on the list of potential donors. The good news is that humanity long ago came up with plenty of ways to protect itself. The simplest advice is to use repellents, which mask the natural smell of the body and make you less noticeable to the insect. Aromatic candles, herbs, and special sprays also help. And the most ingenious traps use the achievements of science. They imitate the breathing of a living creature, releasing carbon dioxide, and thereby lure entire swarms to their death. However, no matter which method you choose, the goal is always the same: to leave the mosquito hungry and not let its bites turn a summer evening into torture. And remember, for a mosquito you are not a human, but just a walking buffet. So don't feed them for free, better leave a like and subscribe to the channel.